Hello, welcome back to another stream where we hang out and create art in some real time. Today, we're going to be working on finishing this reference photo. If you guys were with me a couple weeks ago, we had started this project using our first curated collection, the Clark Fine Art curated collections. And if you guys don't know what that is, I'll go over it for you in just a moment. I was trying to see, this won't let me pin my comment. I linked, I did put it in the live chat, how you can get to that reference photo. And I'm pretty sure it's in the description below as well. But we will talk about what the curated collection is again, just briefly, in case, you know, this is the first time you're catching it and you're like, what the heck are we talking about? I have been sick, so please bear with me. Excuse me. The more I talk, the faster I talk, the more it makes me want to cough. So hopefully that's going to kind of slow me down today. But hopefully we're going to get through it. So, hi, W.A. Castle. Hello, Dolphin Soul. The other thing we're doing today is we're giving away some art supplies because the last stream, Rob had one of our viewers that's regularly here and supports the channel, one of my members and patrons, donated 2 curated collections to viewers. And if you're wondering, how did I enter that? During the last stream, I just shared that all you have to do was comment and tell me you were interested, and you'd be included in that giveaway. And so we have two sets that we're giving away. And if you're wondering what's in the set, well, let's go right down to the desk and we will look at that real quick. So, hi, George. In the curated collection, I chose for my first one to work with Meeden. And the reason that I chose to work with Meeden, as I've already shared previously, they created this set for watercolor. And, watercolor is one of my passions for sure. And this, for those of you who are interested in watercolor, but you just kind of don't know where to start, but you want to start, this I thought was a perfect set. And now Meeden did send the set to me. I've shared that before. But before Meeden had sent me this collection, I was already planning on using them for my first curated collection. And the set was just slightly different. That set was discontinued, but this one still available. And it comes with a set of the Meeden watercolor paints, the 24 colors. And you can see those here. They are tube paints right there. Okay. And we swatched those. And I will try, if you watch this on the replay, I'll try to put a card up right here so that you can see when I first did the unboxing of this and the swatching of these colors and all of that if you're interested. So, because I won't get into too much of that now. So these are all the colors swatched out that were in that set. Meeden does include the pigment numbers and the light fast ratings. Now, I have said, and I stand behind what I said, I think these are like a student grade paint. And the reason I say that is because colors that typically would be more heavily granulating, like the ultramarine, PR101, the burnt sienna, some of these umbers, they're not as heavily granulating in this set. And that's very typical with student grade paint. Now, look at these colors though. Look at the vibrancy in these. I think that they definitely are worth giving a try. And they're slow movers. What do I mean by that? When you use these watercolors in like a wet wash, they don't jump across your page, right? They don't take off on you. They kind of stay where you put them, but they do blend nicely. So I think that makes these a great choice for people who are just starting their journey into watercolor. So this is also kind of like the final review on excuse me, what I think of this overall box. The watercolors, yeah, they're not like your professional legacy brands, your Daniel Smith or Core or any of the bigger legacy brands. It's not, they're not, they don't react and act like some of those do. But I don't think these are bad by any means. I definitely recommend them. For the price point, you can't go wrong really with this set to try them out. You really can't. The folks at Meeden have generously given us a discount code, and that is Clark10, capital CLARK, the number 10, 10. And all of that is in the description below. So if you're looking at this and you're like, you know what? Yeah, you can still get it. You can still get this. In addition to your 24 colors, they give you in the set a block of the 100% cotton cold press acid-free paper. This is 300 GSM. I love this paper. I've shared that before. I really, really love this paper. In addition to the block, and there's 20 sheets, it is 10.2 by 7. I wish it was like 8 by 10. That would be perfect. If this was if they offered it in 8 by 10, just because then as a beginner, it would be so easy for you, at least here in the US, because that's a standard frame size. So it'd be so easy for you to just paint something and pop it in a frame and hang it on your wall. And it would be like, that would be, but I digress. It's 10.2 by 7. I love the paper. And for somebody who's starting, to just start right in with 100% cotton paper that works well, you can't beat that. You really can't. Your colors are going to be more vibrant on the cotton paper. I definitely recommend. And then, so in addition to that, they also give you this little palette. Now this palette has 7 wells. It is ceramic. You're not going to be able to dry down all 24 colors in this little palette, obviously. But when you're doing a painting, usually you're not using more than 7 colors at once. I wouldn't think so. I mean, I guess you could, but generally speaking, we usually limit the palette that we're using for a specific painting. So this would be more than enough for you to do a, painting. So if you just got the set, we're not done yet. There's still more. You also get a full set of the Meeden watercolor brushes. There's 10 brushes here. These are all the brushes that are in the collection. Now, I will say, I have to admit, when I first opened these brushes and picked one up, excuse me, I had my doubts. It felt very, very lightweight, and I was like, I don't know, not quite sure. Excuse me, how these are going to be. We are trying. We're going to get through this today, hopefully without a lot of coughing. All right, but let me just share that after my first, when I first picked up one of the brushes, I was like, wow, these are so lightweight. And I commented that in that video. But when I pick up, this is my brand new, haven't even used it yet. I still have the end on it because I just haven't had a chance to because I've been sick. I just got the long round, the Princeton Aqua Elite. This is my very first Aqua Elite brush. I am so excited to use this one, but that'll be another video. But my point is, I'm picking this up to say, This doesn't weigh a whole lot more than this. So what I first initially was like, wow, this is really lightweight. It's actually not that lightweight. Here's my silver black velvet. And when I hold these, one in each hand, and this is my 8. Now, the Meeden, they don't have size numbers on their brushes, but you see that it's pretty similar in size to my 8 round. I think this would be bigger. I think it'd be more like a 10. But anyways, again, similar in weight. So I don't think that they're actually, now looking back, I don't think that they're too lightweight. They feel very well balanced in the hand. I have not had a single problem with any of the brushes shedding hairs. These are synthetic, and none of the barrels, and you can see, like, yes, they stain because they're white, so of course they're gonna stain. I've used these most during this month, these 3. I've had no issues with anything cracking. I've had no ferrules coming loose. That is my biggest thing. Because there was another brand that at first I wanted to recommend, and now I just won't, because every brush that I use most often, all those ferrules were coming loose, and I just don't think that that's a quality I can get behind. So anyhow, but these ones, I am really pleased. They are holding up, and they're holding their point. Now, I've used the heck out of this one, and it is holding its point still. I haven't like really ticked that tip much. I mean, you see there's a slight, I don't know if you guys can see it. There's a slight little curvature at the end. This is dry. I haven't wet it. But there's a slight little curvature at the end there, but it's not affecting my ability to accurately get that point exactly where I want it, and the point stays. So all in all, I'm very pleased. Now let's talk about that. You get a set of 10 brushes. You get the ceramic palette. You get a full block of paper, 20 sheets. And you get the 24 tubes of watercolor. It's like $35. And then you're going to get a discount if you use the code that Meeden gave me to share with you. That is a great value to get started with watercolor. Excuse me, to just explore and see, maybe this is something you might like to try further. But in addition, and you're going to see me using them today, just going to move these to the side. So in addition to those supplies, that was like my basic collection. And when I do a collection and bring it to you, I'm going to have like just the basic collection. And my goal with this is for this to be able to replace an art subscription box. I wasn't happy with art subscription boxes because I was getting things that were duplicating from box to box, things that I didn't need, or things that maybe I just wasn't completely interested in. And so I ended up giving the supplies away because they just weren't for me. And I know that the whole point of, like, with the art subscription box is to get you trying new art supplies and get into, different things and explore art and things like that. But I also just, like, there were so many times that I just wished, if only I could have seen what was in the box first. I could have just skipped that month because I knew I wouldn't care for that. That was my goal with creating curated collections. So with a curated collection, you can pick and choose. If you only wanted the paper, you could just order the paper. If you just wanted the try the watercolors, you could just order the watercolors. You could just try the brushes. You could just try any one thing, but just know they cost way more separately for this month's collection, at least, than if you got them all, like, together. It's definitely, you get a much better value when you get them together, which is why I started with Meeden, because I wanted to make sure that the first time out the gate, I could bring you a wonderful value. And I think we did that with Meeden. So as I go along and create more of these collections, there will be like a basic set. And my goal is for you to have like medium, a surface, you know, a way to apply it, and for them to be cohesive and actually work together. Because that was another peeve I had with some art subscription boxes, is they just didn't work well together sometimes, you know, and I didn't like that. So one of the other add-ons we're using is this little palette, and it has the ceramic lid that we're going to mix on. Here are our colors. And can I also say about these colors? So I filled this like the beginning of February when we launched this collection. And I filled all of my wells up. These dried beautifully. If you're drying these watercolors or wondering, you know, how are they going to dry down in a palette? They're going to dry down beautifully. They did not crack. They shrunk exactly the way I expected them to. I've been using these for over a month now, and you see I only have a couple spots where you're starting to see the porcelain come through, and this is not a deep palette by any means. These are narrow little spots. However, this paint has lasted. I mean, it has really held up. I've had some paints before that I've used them, and you use them once and you've put these like divots in your pans or in your wells, and you're like, oh my God, you feel like you're using up so much paint so quickly. Not the case here. I didn't feel like I was using it up really fast, and at the same time, I didn't feel like I couldn't re-wet them or that there was a lack of vibrancy in them or anything like that. So I will say that the umber, raw umber, that's the hardest one to re-wet. It re-wets. It just takes a little longer than others. So there's that. But all the rest, I've had no issues re-wetting them at all. So the last add-on that we had was our Meeden brush wash. I love this thing. So this is ceramic. It is heavy. You fill this with water. It is not moving on your desk. That is for sure. And I have noted that I added the paint pucks. And on this side, I have the larger paint puck. And then at first I did the small paint pucks, one on each side. I actually like it with the larger one better. They're all linked in the description below. That is the only item that you can't get from Meeden. So we have everything else you can order from Meeden, but the paint pucks you'd have to get like from Amazon. But again, they're linked. You'll see as we go along. I've showed this so many times. With that paint puck in there, this side is usually my left side is usually my dirty water side, and my right side I reserve for getting my clean water. That's important. And with the addition of that paint puck in there, this gets really dirty. This stays remarkably clean. So I love that. I hope that this is something I will be using definitely for some time to come, because I love that thing. I use it all the time. Doesn't matter what else I'm using. That is very valuable here in the studio now. And so, yeah, I thought those were two add-ons that could complete the collection. But that is what we're giving away. So Rob donated 2 sets, complete sets with the extras. So what it was the block of paper, the 24 tubes of watercolor, the flower-shaped ceramic palette, the set of 10 brushes, plus the add-on of the 24 well ceramic palette with the ceramic lid, and the dual brush wash, the ceramic dual brush wash. Those, we will be announcing the winners of those in just a moment, so stick with me. Um, the sets have been ordered and they have been sent, and I can't wait for the two people who won them to be able to start using them. But let's look at where we left off. So here is our painting from the last time. And again, you see right here below me, I have that reference photo sitting there. This is not the full reference photo. This is my cropped version. This was my composition that I wanted out of the overall reference photo. The overall reference photo is gorgeous, and I did link it. You can get that on my Patreon. You do not have to be you do not have to be a paid member to get that. You can just go over there, and I've pinned the post, so it's going to be very easy for you to find it there. Hi, Caution Artists at Play. And let's see, I saw James GSR show pop in. Okay. And Joseph is here. I know Tara's not here. I'm not sure. Excuse me. I'm not sure when she's going to be here. I know she has a family thing going on today. She was hoping she was going to be able to make it. All right. So fighting through this cold, which of course my body like gets a cold, and it's like a 3-year-old throwing itself on the floor having a tantrum. It does not handle it well. It makes my other chronic illnesses flare up. So everything's been going crazy. My asthma is off the hook, and yeah, I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to paint because I'm doing like breathing treatments like every 4 hours, and it makes my hands shake because it's like albuterol in it. Try painting with shaky hands. It can be done. It can be done. All right. So, one thing I was noticing when I was making the thumbnail for this video, where we left off, and then if I look at over here, if I look at the reference photo right over here, that is a lot bluer. And I was like, wow. See, I thought I was going blue enough when we started painting all of this in. And this has all been done in real time. If you missed it, the replay from the first stream is available, so you can definitely, watch that and kind of catch up. But I thought I was going blue enough. I wasn't. But that's okay, because that's going to let me show you how well you can glaze with these watercolors. These Meeden Watercolors glaze wonderfully. So we're going to, yes, glazing time. James says glazing time. Yes, absolutely. Okay. I just have to mute you there because I knew that was going to be a loud one. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we can glaze this, because if you look here, like my trees that I have, even from this part of the midground, they're still like a little more green than I need them to be. So we're going to kind of make everything a little cooler. We're going to glaze some blue on here. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to start. I'm actually putting a little bit of water into some of the colors, just a couple drops of water on some of these colors that I'm going to use today. Went with my blues and my greens. This is pretty much what we're going to stick with. One thing, and I'm not getting into all of the particulars about the colors and the choices that Meeden has made, but we don't have a plain phthalo blue. And in looking at my reference photo, I really see almost like a phthalo indigo kind of color. And the closest we've got is Prussian blue. And the Prussian blue is made up of PB15, which would be phthalo blue. And PV, Pigment Violet 23, the violet. So that's what they used to make the Prussian blue. I wish they would have given us just the phthalo blue, but whatever reason they didn't. Okay, Jacqueline, great question. Jacqueline says, how long will this set be available at Meeden? And they haven't told me that there's any length of time that you need to order it by. So you should hopefully still be able to get this for a bit. And the discount code will be good indefinitely. You can use it not only on this set, but if there's other things from Meeden that you want to get, you can use that discount code Clark10 to get discounts on other things as well. So I hope that helps answer that question. All right, let's go ahead and do our first, announce the first recipient of our giveaway. And can I just say congratulations to Erica Sandwall, who is one of the recipients that I believe, if Erica's still here, she can tell us. I think parts of that started to arrive, Erica, because it should. If not, it will be at any time now, because I shipped it a while ago. And now I know that the dual brush wells, those have been taking a little bit of extra time because I guess they ran out of them here in the US, and so they're having to ship directly from China. So those are taking a little bit longer, but it's all coming. It is all on its way, and it may come in separate shipments. So for our 2 winners, you may receive them kind of like bits and pieces. The collection will come together, like the paper, the paint, the brushes, and this one. Oh, yay! Excellent. Yes. So it is on its way. I kind of pop over there and check on the shipping to see like where, is it en route. And so I know that they are working on getting those out to the 2 winners. So great. Congratulations, Erica. I'm excited. I can't wait to hear what you think of them as you get to start using these supplies. So, and huge thank you to Rob. I haven't seen Rob yet today, but huge thank you to Rob for giving those to, providing those for us to give, providing those to me to be able to give away to you. All right, so let's get into this because I don't know how long this is going to take to finish, and this is the last stream that I want to be painting this. Now, if for any reason I don't get to finish because I just get too tired or I keep coughing and can't continue, I'll record it and share it with you, because I can definitely do a lot more with editing and pausing to help me breathe when I edit a regular, recording. So we're going to try to get through it. All right. So to start with, I'm going to want to glaze. If you haven't glazed with watercolor before, let's do some of that. I want this to be more blue. So I'm going to come in here to my Prussian blue and just like splash that on my paper, but it's not going to be a big deal. Now I don't want to put this on really thick. I want this to be a nice light wash, because look how blue that is. That way too blue. Way too blue. I'm going to take just the tip of my brush here in my black, and I'm going to tone that down a little bit. There we go. All right. I'm looking at my reference photo, and I think it needs a little bit more. So I'm just the tip of my brush into that black. There we go. All right. Hopefully that's going to get us a little bit more to that blue. But this is still, I have to be able to do this whole wash. There's not enough here. And remember, I want it to be lighter. So lighter means more water. Doesn't mean white. In watercolor, we don't add white to make a color lighter. We add more water. And now additionally, not only am I, have I added more water here on my palette, I'm going to add more water by wetting my paper. So there will be water on my paper that will further dilute this color. I want to just be able to see right through this. Right. I want to maintain all of this, and you're going to see that all it's going to do is change that hue to something that's a little more blue. So I'm just going in my dirty water because right now my dirty water only has that blue in it. And I'm going to re-wet this. This is dry. I haven't touched this in 2 weeks since we were last together. And let me see if I can turn on this light. I don't know how this is going to affect it, but I know that's blowing a lot of light on you guys right here, but it's going to help me be able to see where this is wet and how wet my paper is. I want to wet the paper, but I don't want to put a ton of brush strokes over things and like really activate those colors and move them around from the first layer. I just want to wet the paper so that I can apply my second layer. This is where when I did my review of the, oh my gosh, the Rosa Gallery paints, this, what I'm doing right now, that's where I didn't like the Rosa Gallery paints, because just doing this, it would have reactivated and started like my trees, it would have moved everything around. It was acting, I felt it acted more like a gouache when I went to re-wet versus a watercolor. So this is what I expect from my watercolor. My first layer was good and dry. It's kind of staying put. I just wet over the top of it. Now this was all nice and wet. I actually think I'm just going to use the same brush. I was going to grab this flat one because we hadn't used it yet. But I think I'm just going to stick with this. All right, so there was more water on my brush, grabbing some of this blue, and we're just going to go for it. Remember, your watercolor is going to have a shift when it dries. It is going to dry much lighter. So I'm just going to put that on there and kind of pull it through, and you're going to see I'm still keeping, my values. I'm just, everything is getting a wash of this blue over top. And that is going to really change. And I'm just trying to work quickly while all of this is wet. Now, I wanted this part of my paper to stay white. So I'm going to be conscious of that as I'm glazing this color over. And I am not going to glaze it into that space. Right? So anywhere where I was really trying to reserve some of that lighter value here, if we look at our reference photo, it's not as white as this. I can glaze right through here, and that's going to be fine. Okay, so again, I just want to kind of get in, put that over there, not fiddle too much. By not fiddle too much, I mean I want to repeatedly keep doing a lot of brush strokes over the area. Then we're going to come through. I'm not going to worry about this space if I go over this because I'm about to paint some dark trees here. So I'm not worried about that, but I do need to get this a bit more blue. So we are going to just glaze right through, and that's going to really help with these trees. And we have more of the blue and rinse some of that out. I have a sponge here, and I just kind of tap when I want less water on my brush. I just kind of tap my sponge. Right, pull some of that water out. Okay, somehow I picked up a piece of my own hair. All right, and definitely I want more blue over here. Again, I'm being conscious because I don't want to go up into that white space. I want to kind of stick with my mountains. And I'm going to go ahead right over these trees with that blue. Now this may not be as blue still as maybe I want it, but it is much better than it was. And I'm just going to bring that through into some of this and in our foreground. And certainly going to pick up a little bit where our water is here. Here we go. Okay. And again, you're going to see quite the color shift when your watercolor's dry. You're going to think, oh my gosh, that's dark. And then it's going to dry. It's not so dark. It's not as dark as you thought it was. All right. Which is okay, because if you want it darker, you just go in with another layer. So yeah, you'll see the sponge I'm going to kind of have right off here to the side. You'll probably see me tap on that a lot. I'm moving the round because I'm not going to be using this one today. We're just using the lid. Excuse me. All right. So we are going to let this kind of set and dry for a minute. And while we're doing that, why don't we go ahead and announce who the second winner for our giveaway was from the last live stream. And that second curated collection with the extras went to Dolphin Soul. So congratulations to Dolphin Soul. I'm really excited. I have been in touch with her on Discord, and I know that things have been arriving there for her as well. So yay, congratulations. I can't wait for you guys to use these. And Dolphin Soul has not painted with watercolor. So this is like, she's done ink tints, she said, but not watercolor. So this is going to be all new. I just can't wait to be a part of that. And come along as you start on that journey, because it's oh yes, yeah, I can't wait, because I think that, why that keeps popping over wrong, that you will love it. Oh great, Erica says that she's been doing color mixing charts with it. Fantastic. Oh, I love it. Okay, so far, how are you liking them, Erica? The watercolors. I know Dolphin Soul hasn't had a chance to use hers yet. Okay. I'm liking, that's a bit more blue. And looking now at the reference photo that's like right over here, or straight below me, that's a little bit more to my liking as far as how that blue is looking. I like that. I think I could even like fiddle with the sky and darken up, but I'm not. I'm going to leave it alone, because I will come back. Erica says she likes them. Fantastic. This is a great value. I just really, definitely, I'm like 2 thumbs up with this. I think we started off with a hit, and I'm already considering like what's going to be the next curated collection. I don't know, and I am not sure yet, but it's gonna be hard to top this one. But we're gonna give it a good try. All right. Like I would like to see like some darker values here and up in here. But I know if I go back there, it's going to take me forever as far as getting down here. And we don't have, we're in the bottom third, but there's a lot of work to do in this bottom third. So, oh, that is a great question. So Dolphin Soul asks, so the paint won't soak into the other papers in the pad? No, it won't. You don't have to worry about that at all. I've never had it happen, ever, ever. And I throw a ton of water. You guys have seen, like, I throw a ton of water at this paper. And right now, just from doing that again, it's a little rippled. Like, you see where you separate it right here? It's popped up slightly. There's a little bit of rippling going on. That's normal. Don't panic. That's normal. You're going to get a little bit of that buckling or like cockling in your paper. But if you leave it on the block, it will dry and shrink back down nice and flat. And then you can take it off the block. I use like a little tool like this to take mine off. Looks like a letter opener. If you don't have one of these, don't worry. One of these works great. And quite a few of us, I'm sure, have palette knives, lying around, whether they be plastic ones or metal ones or whatever. You can use that. If you have a letter opener, you can use that. It's very easy to take it off the block, and you would just, you just pop that in right there, and you would just manipulate around and it takes it off. So yeah, great question. You're welcome. All right. This is still very damp. It's very damp. But I think I can start painting in some of these trees that are going to be like over in here. I have, or I should have, a spot, and I keep looking like at my reference. It should actually be like here. It should be a lot brighter, I think, than this is. I don't know if I can lift some of that or not. We're going to give it a try. One of the ways that we can lift, I'm just going to take one of my brushes in my clean water here. I am going to tap that off on my sponge. And I'm just going to see, just back and forth, right? I'm not pushing hard on my paper. I am just going back and forth over this area. And then I'm going to take a piece of tissue and lift out. And you see, it did brighten it up a little. This is not a harsh brush. This is a very soft brush. So it's not really, it's not scrubbing. I'm not worried about pilling my paper or anything like that. Just trying to lift out a little bit. Now, I could always, if I wanted to, after, excuse me, go back with a little Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White and try to bring back some of the white of the paper. Now, one of the things I will say about that is with Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, or really any, gouache, white gouache, anything, you kind of know, right? You can tell. You can tell that it was used. Preserving the white of the paper is always best if you can do so, but things happen. So don't get upset with yourself or, bent out of shape if you weren't able to do that or you lost some of the white. Just know you can use stuff and kind of bring it back. Okay. Hi, Starving Artist Collective. All right. So I'm going to kind of just let that set where I lift it. But we did lift it. And once we put in some of the darker values around it, I think it'll be fine. It should be almost as light as this if I'm looking at my reference, but it's fine. Remember, oh, okay, great. You have a great rest of your day. All right. We're going for photo similar. not photorealistic. All right. So don't let that hang you up. You don't have to paint it exactly the same as the reference. We just want to kind of paint something similar. I am going to grab, we're going to mix up some green. And I need my chart here so I can tell you guys the right green. So I'm going to try to shut this off now. Well, maybe I should leave that on. It's actually a little bit better. All right, just grabbing my color chart so that I am able to tell you guys the correct colors as I grab them. I want something that is green and dark, but yet cool. So I'm going to grab some of the deep green, which is our PG7 and PB15. So it's actually kind of like phthalo turquoise, because this phthalo PG7 is phthalo green and PB15 is phthalo blue. So it's kind of like a phthalo turquoise, but I'm also going to add in a little bit of this black. And that's giving me a very cool, although not dark enough, green, I don't believe. And I'm going to grab just a touch of sap green, which I know is a warmer value, but back into the deep green. All right. I'm just going to kind of go with that, because these are, when I look at that reference photo, this stand of trees is like my darkest area. And again, you're going to see a color shift. I'm going to put this down. It's going to look really dark. But when it dries, it's not going to be as dark. And I'm going to be able to come back in with another layer and darken it up some more. Okay. So we are going to just start. I'm noticing that I'm going to have this area. I've got kind of like a point that comes up here. It's time for glasses, I think. See how dark that is? It's dark. All right. Right, and then there's a point up about here. This paper is still damp, but it's not wet by any means. I'm going to have some areas where I'm going to want some trees that are lighter behind. Just getting some of that paint out of my brush by dabbing it on my palette. The more I work with this, you're going to see the lighter that the color is going to become, because I'm running out of paint in my brush. And that's when I'm going to come through and maybe do some of the ones that'll be like to the background. I probably could use a smaller brush for this. You don't have to grab your largest brush. You could grab, you know, this one would be a perfect size to use as well. Probably give you more control. All right. And these are all evergreens that are over this area. You know, this like the stand of trees that's right here in this picture. So I do need to delete that a little bit. So just dipping into my water and working that on my palette. Now I'm going to have a much lighter value. So I'm just going to put in some more trees that'll be like right in the background. And if you have too much water in your brush, just tap it on your sponge or paper towel. You come back. And there's some that will be lighter back there. All right. And sometimes it can get hard to follow that reference photo, right? And then we definitely have trees that come in front here. Don't be afraid to change it up a little bit. Don't be afraid to, you know, if you add a tree that maybe wasn't there, just doing a little negative painting. We had this one that's here that's lighter, and I'm leaving that. I'm just going to kind of come in and make it look like there's a tree behind it. I'm painting around space, but leaving that tree there. We call that negative painting. All right, now that definitely, this has to come down a bit further than it does. So while this is still wet, I'm just going to kind of bring this down. Just pulling that color back into my wet paint, and I'm just kind of pulling it down. And I'm leaving my edges kind of like jagged and because if we look at the reference photo, nothing is actually really super in focus in any of this reference, even more towards the foreground. So we're just continuing to, you know, allude that there's the trees and you know what's here, but we're not really doing anything with any great detail. Over around here, we have actually another darker area. And I'm going to grab a little bit of my burnt umber, just a touch, and bring that in. Just warming the green up a little bit for this part. There we go. And we're going to have to put in like some more shadows and stuff up there. But that's okay. It'll happen. All right. And now look how much like greener that looks versus over here. I think this could even be darker if we look at our reference photo, but it needs to be more. It's not really blue, but it's not really green either. I want to see how this dries, and if I like the way that this dries better, I may bring some of that value over into this space because this is still a little too green. All right. Yeah, see all this space here. We need some more trees here. Just bringing a little bit more blue into that. Just that blue that we glazed into our sky. Again, I tap that on my sponge just to make sure that I don't have too much paint. Because see, if I just tap, you see every time I tap, leaves that reservoir. I mean, it leaves that like little pool of paint. I don't want to flood my painting with any of that. I think this needs to be a darker tree here. I'm going to put some further back here. Just keep looking at my reference photo. And again, it is not exact. Thanks, George. But we don't need exact, we just need similar. Okay. We're getting some distance. Let's I'm going to do some more glazing. So just taking this thin, really thin watercolor that we've used over here so far, I'm going to bring over a layer on top of these trees. So I'm just going to repaint the trees that are already there, just to put this on top, sort of change their value. We glazed the blue over it, but I think it could be more. And some of these are much darker than they're showing up. So I want to go ahead and bring that in, right? And see, I skipped one because in my reference too, some are lighter and some are darker. So by glazing over some of them, again, grabbing some of the blue, grabbing some of this green, more of my water. Tap that, let it pool on my palette so it doesn't pool on my paper, and then come back and just repaint over some of these trees. And the more we layer, so Dolphin Soul said, insane how much depth it has. So the more we layer and add these values in and leave some of these trees light and go over some of them, it'll pull them forward. We're adding even more depth, but you notice we're not adding more details. We're definitely keeping it, there's suggested, these, the brain goes, oh, those are trees. It knows because it's the shape of a tree. It looks like it's a tree. And really these trees here kind of come out like there's like a point that stops here. These are further back, so I'm not going to touch those, but I am going to really go over these ones up front here, because in order to give that depth, right, and to change, I need dark and I need light. There's Tara. Right, so by having the dark out here, I can bring this forward more, and having this lighter, I can push those back further. Now, there is a little bit, I need like some variation in my values back here somewhat, but I don't need a ton, right? So I'm not going to get as much as what I have up here, but I am going to add a little bit as far as values. And I'm just kind of dabbing in some areas. Same for back here, right? Let's take some of this. Again, I just dipped in my water, and by dipping the tip of my brush in my water and coming back over here to my paint, I'm diluting it further. So when that dries, it's going to be an even lighter value. And we're going to put a few different values back here, because we're going to certainly have some that may show, be more in shadow, and some things closer to us. Now, see, I think that looks dark. Now, it might not be that dark. And just dabbing that with my tissue. So just touch it with my tissue. That's right. We did just have a birthday. So happy birthday, George Pencil Art.
Happy birthday!
Hopefully you had a great day. Okay. There we go. I think that's better. I'm liking that a lot better. And see, I want this to even be pulled forward more, and where they are right now in relation to each other on the paper, they're kind of, this is lower, but if I look at my reference photo, this is lower than this stand of trees are. But this stand of trees is actually closer. They're bigger. So I'm gonna actually bring this down more. I'm gonna bring it down a little bit further. This is not hard to do. So just going back to the color that I already used, get that wet. I'm gonna go just as if I were painting another layer of trees. Only this time, I'm gonna bring it down lower. So again, I had my deep green and my sap green and a little bit of this black. That was a lot of bit of that black, but that's okay. My deep green, there we go. If this looks like it's going to be a little darker, it's fine, because remember I said I want to have multiple values here. So by doing this, and this is a very creamy mixture of paint, just kind of spinning my brush again. I'm tapping, getting some of that paint out. I'm not going to worry too much. About the bottom here. We're going to just come right in, and these are some of my taller trees, but maybe I have trees that are in front of those. So I'm going to start like I'm painting a whole new tree. And I wonder, let me see if I can bring it even closer. Let's try that. Okay. Oh, so Dolphin Souls is coming soon too, the 13th. Oh, that'll be next Wednesday, just before we stream again. Oh, happy birthday to your brother, George. We have a lot of family birthdays right around now too this month. All right, so just starting again, and I'm just going to paint another tree. Right, bring down another tree. I see it definitely stands out over the other space. And let's just do another one. Again, I'm not worried about what, if my reference photo goes, oh, there's a tree here. No, there wasn't a tree here. Doesn't matter. There is a tree in my painting now, and he has a friend that stands right here. Okay, I'm going to bring this over. Remember, I want to bring all of this down. I don't mind if I see some of the lighter values through. It's just going to help add the depth and give more dimension to your painting. right? And definitely define this as a big stand of trees, as a big cluster of trees here. I wanted to bring this down. It's going to kind of come around here. It's going to be more growth that kind of is growing up around this space. Just put some more. Just put some more. All right. Remember I said back here was going to need some more values. We're gonna need to darken that up. Let's do a little bit of that now. Scrubbing my brush out there. Taking this, some of this right here, where I had added a little bit of my burnt umber. I'm just getting any water off. And remember, I want to pull water out of the belly of my brush. I can just touch the base of my bristles. The paint's going to be there, but it pulled out. Oh, there's a lot of water that just pulled out of my brush. You see there, that was quite wet. So it pulls a lot of water out. Okay, and now I'm just going to use this and just kind of dab in some areas that are darker to kind of add more values back here. There we go. And I'm not going for any, I'm just dabbing in color. Looking at my reference photo and going, oh, okay, there's an area that's darker here. The shape looks kind of like that. So there you go, right? Put in a little bit of that. And now look, we have already, we can see, it looks like trees in the distance here showing up too as well. We'll be adding more. I think I'll do another layer of that before long, but we're going to leave that be. Let's work on some of our water. Let's get this established. So then once that's established, we'll just kind of put in our foreground, and that's should be pretty easy because again, there's really not a lot of detail in much of this. Our water is very, there's areas here that's like almost like the cerulean. I think that's cerulean blue. So this one right here. Right, and I'm going to turn this just so you can see the color I'm working with at the moment. And this is, again, a very thin mixture. I've added a bit of water to that because I want to start light. I can always layer up. I can add more, but it's hard to take it away once it's there. In our water, you guys can't see the reference photo. There you go. So the water is a lot bluer. And the way that I've cropped mine is even more so, it's even tighter than what you're seeing in the reference photo up here. The base of my water is right here. So that whole area is right to the edge of the painting, a little bit more so than that. And it's fine. You can crop this. Again, I encourage you to take a peek at the entire reference, because this is, there's a lot more to this image than what I'm even sharing with you here and what I've cropped for mine. So I'm skipping around and I'm leaving space. Let me bring that a little closer so you can see. I'm leaving spaces as I go because that's going to become that sparkle and the highlight that we're seeing in this painting, in the reference. I want to pull this a little further. So, you know, I definitely, I have some, I can still see some of my lines. From when I transferred my image, but I'm kind of working a little outside the box here. So I think it needs to go. It can be hard sometimes to follow when you have too many lines. So see, we're starting to get some, it looks like sparkle by preserving some of the white of that paper. And I'm just going to come through. I'm going to bring my water right over to here. And now this is a river. I need to pay attention to which way my water is going. The water looks like it's flowing this way, comes around this corner, and then is going this way. So I have to shift my lines. They're going horizontally here, but they kind of fan around and then they go almost vertically here. And I want to make sure that I pay attention to that as I go, because that is going to help show the flow of this water and give it some movement. Again, I'm like really kind of skipping around, just doing a bunch of little lines there. And I'm going to have to come back with darker values. And this will definitely have a drying shift as it goes. See, there's a lot of water on my brush right there. Just going to pull some of that out. There we go. Move that around. As I start to bring this, I know some of this is going to get painted. Some of this is going to get painted over. Hopefully you guys can hear me just fine today. Trying to talk slower so that it doesn't make me cough so much. Talking is definitely difficult. But some of this is going to get painted over and it'll actually like disappear with the foliage that's going to come in this foreground. Thank you, Tara. So again, now I'm going, you see my brush strokes are going this way because that water is going to come through, come around, and flow past us that direction. And some of this is a lot darker, but up in here, definitely had a lot more blue. And I was really seeing that cerulean come through. Trying to preserve some of the whites. I'm not worried if I paint more blue than is necessary because some of this is going to be darkened up. Like there's along the bank up here, this gets really dark. But if I want to put that blue in to kind of establish that that's where the river bank is going to be, just to kind of help. And again, you could take all the time in the world that you want to go, you know, inch by inch or centimeter by centimeter and break this down and paint every single spot exactly as you see it, you know, in the reference. But it's not necessary. So again, not my goal here was not photo realistic, right? I just keep saying that photo similar, but I think it's important to hear that because so many times I think we judge ourselves, and I think we judge ourselves a little too harshly because we don't need to paint a reference exact. And I think sometimes if we're trying to work from a reference photo versus just you know, making up the landscape as we go, we can judge ourselves a little harsher if it's not looking exactly the way that we want. I'm just kind of, again, laying strokes through so that I get that highlight and it looks like it's going, the ripples are going this way. All right, we need some darker values in this. And I'm going to, again, I'm coming back up here. I have a little bit of that color that I glazed my background. I'm going to grab that. So that is Prussian blue. The cerulean blue I've already used, keeping everything cohesive with what's in the river. And then I'm grabbing some of that black. Really going to desaturate that. And then this, let's get that dry. And if you were wanting to be closer, again, pulling water out of the belly of my brush, if you were wanting to be closer to, you know, what you see in the reference, you could certainly print it out. And I've done this many times. Print your reference image with some white space around it on just a plain piece of like printer paper. But then you can mix your color and you can kind of touch your color to the edge of your painting near what you're trying to match. And it's a good way to just kind of work on matching your colors and see, you know, how close you are. So along this riverbank, it's quite dark right here. And we have a lot of stuff to paint in here in this middle ground. But let's just get our shoreline established here. Right? We're going to pull this over. It comes like this. Here. And we see it kind of tuck in back here. And you think that mine is not quite pushing back. It needs to push back further. But again, this is where when you start to do something like this and you go, oh, and shoot, it's not not exactly where it's supposed to be. Remember, when people look at your finished painting, unless you go like this and go, hey, there's my reference photo and here's my painting, they're not seeing your reference photo. They're just seeing your painting. And your painting is more than fine. You don't have to be perfect. All right, we're going to do some pulling. This is a technique. I'm going to put this in. So this is a technique with watercolor where we're going to put down our color. Okay, now I have this on here, but I want to pull that color and I want it to get lighter in value as it goes this way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rinse out my brush, clean water. I'm just gonna tap that off. I probably should be doing this with a smaller brush, but you'll find that often I just start painting and I don't often come in and grab, change my brushes as much as I necessarily should. So now I just had a clean brush and I'm taking and pulling that color. And I'm going to pull it out. And you see that value gets lighter as we go. I can go back through and do this again. Okay. And it's going to just get lighter as we go. And we're going to get this nice like transition. If I want to bring some more color in, start where it's darkest. I'm just going to pull it down through. And I'm going to pull that color, but I'm going to let it soften as it goes. And that's pulling. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Starving Artist Collective. I'm going to pop that up there because there's like such a focus. I think we see that a lot. And as a creator on YouTube, yeah, we see it a lot. Like people look at it and go, oh, well, you're a great artist. Look at how, you being able to copy a reference photo. I mean, yes, it takes talent to be able to accurately reproduce a reference photo. I am not making light. Please don't anybody get me wrong there. I'm not making light of that, or that it's, that it's any easier because you're copying a reference photo. Absolutely not. That is definitely a skill and it does take work. But that said, I don't think that the ability to reproduce a reference is what constitutes your art being good, if you would, at all. I'm working on mixing up some more of that color I want in my riverbank, and as I pull down here, I think I'm just going to get a little bit darker. There we go. And we have lots of darks that pull through. Yeah, see, that's a bit darker. A little bit more of this blue. Again, see, I started to lay that in there and I go, oh no, maybe that's a little darker than I actually want. Just change it up, grab something else. Don't worry, don't panic. All right. And just see, I've cleaned my brush, I've wiped it off on the tissue, and I can just come right back through and just come over that, and now it's going to soften. All right, we've started to establish part of our bank. I'm going to build up, I'm just going to build up here. And I think I've got more height. Like I could have pushed this river back here. I probably should have. I probably just didn't follow my original lines correctly. I'm going to have more foliage in this space than the reference photo does. I'm not worried about it. It doesn't matter. That's what I really want to emphasize, right? It really doesn't matter. Just you're painting. I keep saying it. Photo similar, right? Similar. It's based off. I'm grabbing a little bit of my burnt sienna now, just because I'm going to start warming up some of these values as I get this way. This right here would be warmer, but there's so little of it that I think it'll look odd if I don't bring some of the warmer values into this part as well. Because our warmer colors, we see a tiny bit right here, and we see some in the right in the foreground, but I have some of that foreground cut out. So in order for this to look cohesive, I'm going to need to bring a little bit of warmth into this side of my banking as well. So that's what I'm doing. But yeah, don't get hung up on, I'm going to use a reference photo, but it's got to look just like it, or it's not good, or, you know, it's less than, or it's just, that's just not, absolutely, I don't think that can be further from the truth. Okay, again, there's a lot of detail. We're just going to start laying in like clumps and mounds of foliage. So let's go with our banking. Maybe some of this is like grass that comes over. If I need to darken any of this up, I can come back. I expect this to be my light value. I'm going to have to darken some of this up, but this part of the land is flat right here. Like right along that part of the bank in the reference photo looks flat. I'm just, again, I put the color down here and I'm just pulling it. I'm pulling that color through. If I want to soften this edge so I don't have a harsh edge, I'm just going to go into my water, dry that brush off, and just with a clean brush, I'm just going to come right along the edge. I'm not flooding my paper with water. Just that damp brush is going to be enough to soften and let that paint kind of diffuse. Again, the Meeden paint is not by any means is not a fast mover, but it will soften and the edges will diffuse nicely. All right, I want some lighter. I want to really bring some stuff up here. And again, you don't have to completely follow your reference photo. As far as color-wise, if you want to bring more light in, bring more light in. So I'm just grabbed my yellow ochre and I want to warm this up. I want some warmer values in here. You see, some of this is going to glaze over other parts. We're going to get different values. Especially over here on this side of the banking, this is really going to get bright. I'm going to bring in some more. You see me start jumping around. And this is gamboge. I'm going to put some of this gamboge right here. I'm just going to grab it, grab some of this, and come over here. Right, there we go. Wow. See, look how much brighter that is. But this, we really kind of have like, our light is coming through here, and it's kind of coming across this area of that banking. Definitely has that light. So we're going to start by putting that in as the base. We'll build up values on top of that. Maybe we have a little bit through here. and I want it cohesive. I'm just going to, there's very little left on my brush right now, and who knows how I'm going to end up covering this spot, but I'm putting a little bit of it here. Again, this light is it's coming through this way, so I want to I'm going to want to have that there. Let's warm that up a little bit. Maybe a little right here. All right. This is really hilly. It looks to me like there was a lot of trees that are just like downed. I just picture like if this were Maine, and these mountains are too big. But if this were Maine, I would think like it almost looks like birch trees bent over. There's a lot of trees that look like they're clumped and down. It's a mess. This actually looks like a big old mess. So all we have to do is just kind of paint in some of those suggestions. So let's just start. See, again, I'm jumping around. I'm just looking at basic shapes that I see. We're going to do some negative painting. We have a few, it looks like down trees, and so I'm just going to try to paint around a couple of those spaces. Where it's not going to quite look right yet, but hopefully after. And negative painting was one of the things I found more difficult to do, because you're painting the dark spaces around the light object and trying to preserve that light found it quite difficult. It's certainly something I'm still working on. And this definitely, I think I'm going to wet this area because, oh, thanks, James. I think this is going to lend itself well to some wet and wet. So I'm just going to wet that area. And let's see how quickly we can just paint in some of this space, because we want it to, blur. We don't want hard lines. So I'm just going to look for areas that just have shapes. I'm looking for shapes. There's some rounded. I'm going to drop in the color. I'm going to have to come back with a darker value for sure. And we definitely have, there's some lighter values coming through here. So as I use up some of this paint out of my brush, I will come back. I'm going to leave some of that. Remember, we put in that brighter color. I'm going to want to leave some of that showing. But as I use up some of that paint, I know I just picked up more, but as I use up some, I'll come through and come over that, and it'll let me add a value there, but it won't be as dark. Does that make sense? Like, did I ramble? I looked up, so I just tapped my sponge. Still have a lot of paint in this brush now. I'm trying to look. Remember, I pulled these lights out. I gotta remember that this area that needs to stay light. I have water back there, and I'm gonna definitely have more of a defined line coming through here. There's actually a hard line here that comes over that water, because this river like comes down and it's coming around and it's coming around. It's very winding. So we want to convey that. I want to make sure that this looks like water back here. I'm definitely going to have to do a lot of darkening up on these values as I come through this space. But this goes, kind of comes out. And again, mine looks a little different because this points to, there should be a big tree, and I put my big tree here. Their big tree is a little closer. Maybe I have another big tree. I just have to paint it in. Right? And that kind of connects to the other side. We're not seeing where it's winding through there. All right. Yeah, I'm liking that a little better. That's funny, James. Okay, so yeah, Starving asked about the brushes. So this, as far as liquid watercolors, this palette for liquid watercolor, I think it would be great. They're round, you know, in concave wells that would certainly, you'd be able to hold liquid watercolors in these. This is the lid for it, so you'd be able to mix on that as well. And if they dried in here, it would be no problem at all just to, you know, grab a pipette and then reactivate with some water those liquid colors and bring them right back. This obviously is not airtight because it is ceramic. As far as the brushes, the set of 10, they have a great spring to them. They're pretty snappy. They definitely snap back. They are synthetic. Let me see. You can't really see, like when I put the brush in the water, you see the brush doesn't like really fluff up like it gets a little bit bigger, but it doesn't fluff up a great deal like a natural hairbrush would. So yeah, they make me think of like a Princeton snap, because they definitely, try to make sure I don't flick any water on my painting. They definitely have a snap, so you have that control. You do have that firmness. It's holding its point wonderfully. So I definitely recommend. I mean, they're certainly, for the price, they are worth a try. I like these so far, like everything. The ferrules, none of the ferrules have loosened. I've had no issues with like cracking paint. They're very light in the hand, but they feel balanced. Yeah, I mentioned earlier before you got here, Starving Artist Collective, like this is a size 12 long round by Princeton Neptune. I haven't had a chance to use it yet. This is not much heavier than this. It's a little bit, but not a lot. I compared it to like my Silver Black Velvet size 8. I think this is more of like a 10. But they're pretty similar in weight. So I have not had a single hair shed. I am definitely liking them. So I guess I would recommend giving them a try, especially for the price. I mean, if you get them in the set, this set was only $31. about $35, somewhere in there. I know I don't have the exact cents correct, but you can certainly get them, and on their own, I think on their own they're $20. So you're getting, for $15 more, you're getting a block of 20 sheets of paper, you're getting the 24 watercolors, and you're getting the floral palette that is ceramic along with the brushes, just like 4 items in the set. So I mean, it's definitely, the value is there, but are the brushes worth a try? Absolutely. I definitely think so. I hope that answered your question. Sorry guys, I'm also thinking as I'm going, just grabbing some of this blue. I know I already had the green. I'm grabbing some of that blue. Remember I said I wanted a tree. I want that tree here. That's coming over, and I want a tree here. Yep. It's a little dark, so we'll just dab and lift, and there you go. If I want it darker than that, because I just lifted off a ton of that color, I'm just going to drop a little back in. Remember, the color will shift. It will get lighter as it goes. At the bottom, I want to lift that up. Underneath, we have like this darker area here. Again, I'm just kind of looking at some of my shapes. This is a little too light. We're just going to put in some more foliage. There we go. Okay, yeah, isn't it Petite Dolphin Souls that's just added all the paints to it? It's so cute and petite. It is. When I first got it, I was like, oh, it's a little smaller than I expected. And I was like, oh, is this going to hold enough paint? You know, and I was really kind of leery. But I have to say, she definitely holds the paint. It does. Definitely does. All right, I need darker values here. Just like some light there. And remember, I said we had some darker values here. Again, this is kind of, I'm going for this blue-green because that's still that background. And I have some hard lines come through. We're going to have some hard lines come through right about here. Bumps up. Okay. Again. So again, I'm just looking at the general shape as this comes along. Not worried if I'm exact. Dropping some more color in there. And now I'm going to kind of blend this out. It gets softer. So to do that, I'm just going to take my brush, not adding any more color in there. I'm going to rinse this out now. I'm just going to take a clean brush, wipe that off. So now my brush is just damp. And I'm pulling. Okay, pulling that color. There we go. Pulling that color down so it can kind of blend through. Another thing that we can do, this was like an old corner from like a package that was shipped to me, and this was very hard. I have one that I left so that it's higher if I want a higher angle. And then this one, I scored it and then broke that down. So if I'm working with something like this and I want my color to flow downward, you know, as I do that blending, all I have to do is put that little block underneath my block of paper, and gravity will take care of that for me. All right. We got to get some darker. You guys see how dirty, how clean? The paint puck, I think it makes like all the difference. Oh yeah, because the difference with but you should still also don't forget to use the code Clark10 at checkout if you get one, because regardless whether you get the set or you just get the palette, you'll get a discount from Meeden. You should get a discount. That should work for you there as well, I would imagine. They didn't tell me there would be any problem, so hopefully no issues with that, and you can take advantage of the discount. Let's just take a peek. Let me get another angle here to show you. I need to get some more. We need to, like, this is very uneven ground. We need to convey that. All right, so coming around here, there are more dark areas in this. Right. And I think it's safe to say we can go even darker than that. Again, I'm coming with that blue and into this green. Definitely darker. And we have another spot, like there's the water, and then we have another spot that's here where it almost looks connected. Let's kind of bridge that over. I mean, I think we understand that it comes around. But this is where the land kind of turns. So we've got all of this going like up this way, and I need that darker. Grab some of this blue and black and just lay in at the base here. I'm just dabbing, right? Remember when I showed you on the palette when I had everything was really wet and I just kind of dabbed it to get some of that paint to come out of, you guys aren't seeing that because we're in a different view. I just kind of dabbed it to get that paint to come off. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing here. I'm taking that darker, those darker values, and I'm just kind of dabbing and depositing some of that because this is wet. This is wet and wet. It's going to move slightly. But this starts to come around, and as it comes around, maybe it's not the best angle. Let's go back to above. As it comes around, we're going from seeing, like, looking up at the bank to it turning and we're looking over the bank this way. So we're going to try to make that shift here, because here we have, we put in some of that light, and I have a lot of water on my brush right now. It's leaving a lot of water, like a pool of water behind. This gets really kind of thin. Our foliage comes right up here, and I'm just using the point of my brush to kind of make those marks. We're going to come back with some green again. Let's get some darker green again. So this is our deep green. Touch of our sap green. And I've already got that black here. I'm just going to pull it over. Again, this is quite a wet wash. Pull any extra water out. I'm still using this large. Actually, you know what? Let's switch. It has felt so good to hang out with you guys and paint today. Now I'm dabbing in because this was, I just did this very wet. So now when I dab this in, my color's only going to go where my water was, or where I touch, right? And so there gives us kind of that broken up edge of our banking. And I'm just going to pull that bank right out there. And a little bit going up this way. There we go. We can see through some of this brush, so we don't want it all to be really dark. Just going to drop more in some places, and then it kind of comes around, and of course it's darker back here because we're looking up at it. Some more darken through here. So anywhere, like now I have this hard edge. If I don't want that hard edge, I'm just going to clean my brush off, wipe that off, and come back right along the edge and soften it. See, I can do the same for the bottom part, just with a damp brush coming right along that edge and soften it. Just going to put in some more areas. I'm not really worried about my reference photo now. I'm just know that I need to have what looks like clumps and hills going on here, with a variety of values, lights and darks. I'm just going to kind of let that be. Some of this area has, there's lighter spots showing through because there's branches sticking up or trees that are curled over, and just kind of let it happen. Again, we had our brighter, like our yellow that was in there. I'm not going to lose that too much. Just softening some of the edges now. This is getting wet, so now this is going to be wet and wet. I'm just going to drop a little bit in. I want some darker value. Kind of connecting to where I had my line, and that line has lightened up, and I think I'm going to come right in with the black and darken that up some more. There we go. I'm liking that a lot better. It's not exact to our reference photo, but I definitely like where it's going. And I can keep coming in and adding, adding values here. Anywhere that I want to darken things up. Right? Hey, Rob. Hey, glad you joined us. I'm glad I'm able to be here. Okay. This area I think came around more. I've got to get some more darks, and so this is gonna run a little longer. But you know, I didn't stream last week, and I think it's important. A new job interfering with your important things. Well, I don't know. The job might be the important part. Yeah, so Rob, we did announce the winners from your generous gifts of the curated collections. So just so that you are aware, we had Erica Sandwall, who was here earlier, also had a work meeting interfering, and Dolphin Soul. So those are the recipients of your generous gift, and yeah, they have started receiving parts of their collection and are excited to get using them. Starving says you're lucky we saved you the last seat in the house. All right, I'm just kind of bringing some of that. Well, that'll there we go. I'm just kind of bringing some of that out, so it looks like the shoreline is it's not perfectly even. Again, I'm gonna go over where this is darker. I'm like, I hate to rush through it. I mean, I want to wrap up as far as time goes, but I'm actually not. I don't want to jinx myself. I'm actually not coughing right now, and I have been just dying to paint. I'm like, I don't want to stop. If you guys want to hang out with me, I'm gonna keep painting, because then I also don't have to come back and do this again. And this will go quickly. We'll put this in quickly like we did this. It doesn't it doesn't have to be exact. All right, let's get some darker values in some of this water. And I'm going to just stick with, like, I have this blue-green color here that I've been using. And I think if I thin a little bit of that down, we're just going to give that a try and see how it does. Because through here, right, like there's a bit of, yeah, I think that's going to be perfect. So the water, there are definitely some shadows that come through here. And we're just going to go right over that cerulean blue and put some of that in. Yeah, I think that's perfect. Especially back here. Again, if I skip over some spaces, that is going to be desired, because it is going to just help add to like the sparkle, if you would, of the water. I'm liking that much better. Okay, and so we have, there's a really darker area that comes through here. And I'm going to, once again, just like I did before, I'm going to work some of this working strokes this way, because I want to show the current that's in this water. And being very careful to still preserve some of those white spaces. If I get a spot that looks a little too dark, just dab the tissue right over it. Not a problem. Right? I want this to be a little bluer. Bring a little bit more of this blue down into here. and that will lighten some of that up. Right, we have some shadow through here. And this is where, like, you're not going to this is where your brain will give you a hard time. Just let your brush skip around. Right? Again, you could zoom in and paint every, square centimeter just perfectly. But you don't have to. This area, we have a lot more brightness, so I'm going to be conscious of that and just kind of skip through some of these spaces. Right? Here we go. Almost have like our shadow of that land that's sticking out there. But the more that you just kind of skip around, the more natural it's going to look. Just let your brush kind of dance on it, and look at how much more now that water is going to start to look like it's water. Again, here, this is that blue that we glazed over our sky. Here's our darker values down here. I'm just kind of bringing some of that in. There was a little bit of green that I had pulled over at one point. It's just go with what's on your palette. Don't overthink it. Right, so here, again, preserve some white space by letting your paintbrush kind of jump and bounce and like skip around. You're going to preserve some of those lights, and this is going to look more and more like water. And I'm not coming straight down. I'm working kind of at an angle. My brush is at like a 45-degree angle to the paper. And I want some of the white to still show. I want some of the cerulean to show up through. I'm not trying to repaint over everything, just some of it. So now we definitely have something that is looking like some sparkly water. Yeah, James says if you squint slightly, your water sparkles already. And Starving Artist Collective asked, let me just pause for 1 second so I can answer that question. Starving Artist Collective asked about the size of the palette. And whoa. So this palette, the lid here, I am at, you can see there, about 6 inches. And that's what, 15.5 centimeters by about 4.5 or about 11.5 centimeters. So that is the lid, and obviously fits right on top of this guy, which is the same. So there you go. I hope that answered your question and helped. All right. So back to our water. We've got this pretty much, I think our water is looking pretty good. I'm going to take a little bit of this color that we were just using down here, and there's like just a few little spots. Let's just put in like a few spots up here. We're not seeing much there, and I want to bring this a little more blue. So I'm kind of bringing a little bit of that up here too, just to get that blue. I want them to be like, oh, hey, yeah, that's the water still. You're welcome. All right, so again, the color that I glazed over my background that I still had left on my palette, and because this is more like a gray, it's very much this lighter value, but I am going to exercise some artistic license here, and I'm going to bring in some dabbles of this blue just to tie in, because now there is no mistaking when you're looking at this here, right? And I can just dab. If I get a little too much, if it's a little too dark, just dab it with a piece of tissue and it'll lighten up. But that definitely is the river coming through. And I'm going to bring a little bit more of the blue over to this side. All right, let's drop in some foliage here. We need the mounds and that uneven land like this is over on this space. And then we're going to paint their foreground, put in a few little grasses, and we're going to call this one done. And this, I think this is going to come together really quickly now. I hope you've been enjoying this. If you have, please do hit that thumbs up button. If you enjoy like the real-time paintings and hanging out, let me know. Drop me a comment. This is like my favorite time, hanging out with you guys on a Thursday afternoon. All right, again, I'm working on my greens. Right, I'm gonna want some different values, and these are still very muted greens back there. This whole thing is very muted and foggy. This is like the fog burning off in the morning, right? Just gonna grab all that and bring it right over here, because why not? A little bit more. Grab that black. So I've got that black to desaturate. And you don't have to use black, right? You could use a red to desaturate a green. And I'm probably will get into more of the desaturating and the changing with like burnt sienna and stuff as we get into for this foreground part. But for back here, I'm still just kind of desaturating with black. All right, let's just, I need this to be pretty much wet and wet also, because like I did over here, you kind of get that really quickly. Let's just throw in, just wetting the area. And we're just gonna pop in some foliage. I'm going right over, bringing it right to my shoreline. And again, this is one of the things I love about these Meeden paints is once they've dried, they kind of stay where I've put them, and I can absolutely re-wet this Meeden paper and work my next layer wet and wet again and not disturb that. So if I'm painting with, you know, transparent colors, I'm going to build up those values. I'm going to build up those different layers, but you're still going to be able to see through. I just really enjoying the way I can work with these colors. I hope if you decided to give them a try that you are enjoying them as well. So here I'm not really, I'm just putting in some green. I haven't even really started looking back to the reference yet to see like where are there darker sections and where are there lighter sections. I'm just getting some uneven terrain laid in here. Oh, thanks, Dolphin Soul. And can I like give a quick shout out to all of the new members? I have opened up Discord to all members. So whether you choose Patreon or you choose to be a member on YouTube, from the least expensive tier, which is our super fan tier, and up, Discord is now open to everyone who is a member or patron. And I'm loving it because we have a lot more people that have popped in over there recently. Again, huge thank you to all of you who are choosing to become members of the channel and support the channel. We have fun. That is definitely, if you like behind the scenes stuff, if you want that communication, that is where that's where you need to be. You need to be on Discord, because I share, like this week, I was talking and posted stuff over there, you know, while I've been sick, and I was able to say hi to people, and it was really nice. Um, that was way too much black, way too much. That's all right. We'll just pull it out. There we go. Get my deep green there. And what I'm doing is I'm just, again, I keep mixing up different values. This is still wet and wet. And if we look at the reference photo, I mean, it just has spots where there's shadows, and it just looks like a lot of, there's just a lot of growth. There's a lot of plant life over here. And that's what, well, I'm going to bring in a little bit of this yellow. Why not? But yeah, so if you are a member, and you're not on Discord yet, all you have to do, you know, Discord is an app for those who aren't familiar. It's an app you can download on your phone, or you can get it on the computer. You don't have to download the app. I think you can just go right, I think you can do it via like a web browser too. But anyways, that was really dark, wasn't it? It's all right. We're not gonna worry about that. So anyhow, you get the Discord, and then on Discord, you would connect to your YouTube account, and it will automatically put you in there. And again, I've shared before, I made a community post about that. So if you are not familiar, I have a community post that literally walks you right through exactly how to do all that. Now this river, along the river bank, it is darker, so I definitely need to darken this up. And we have a dark mound here. And yeah, James says showing the difference between using black versus using a complementary color might make for a good Monday mix. Yeah, it might. I hope you guys have been liking those, the Monday mixing videos. Rob says I think she needs a bigger mixing palette. I always, if I had a bigger mixing palette, I would just take up all of its space too. It doesn't matter how big my palette is. I just go crazy. And Dolphin Soul asked, so the water really isn't dirty because you're still putting into the palette. So this water is filthy, right? This water is filthy. And when I wipe that off, look how clean this water is, right? So this, very clean. So anything that I'm doing, if I need clean water, if I don't care if it's this color water, you know, my green, then I can just grab that water. Mostly I'm working in green, so it really wouldn't matter at this moment. But this is absolutely perfectly clean. So whenever I come into the palette, if I'm trying not to like mix my colors and contaminate them in the palette, you'll see me clean out in between. But I hope that answered what you were asking, Dolphin Soul. If it didn't, just ask me again, and I'll get it figured out. All right, so I need some darker areas here. We've got some darks going on back here. Let's just get some of this popped in darker. And I'm going to kind of do some negative painting, right? Because you're seeing through some of this brush at the top to that bank back there. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, perfect. I'm hoping I was answering that well. We have, so this is wet, this is dry, this is wet. So if I come in here and I just drop this dark, because again, I wanted some of that negative painting. So where I went down, that was wet. This is going to spread, but it's only going to spread where there's water. It's only where there's water for it to travel to. So I'm just going to keep coming through and dropping in some of these darker values. Along the base of the bank here. Right. and just tapping as I go. And I'm going to want to pull this darker value. I want a little bit more green, coming into the green more, because this is very light. And if we look at our reference photo, it is very not light at all, right? This kind of pushes in back there. So now that area is wet. I have a lighter space here, which I lost a little bit of. So I'm going to rinse my brush. Clean water. Wipe this out. And somehow you see we got back to using the large brush. And I'm going to lift that out right there. Bring some of that light back in, because there is light hitting right here in our reference photo. And then it's darker behind that. So let's come around behind. Put some more dark in there. And if we want to soften it up, damp brush right along the edge, and now I won't have a hard edge there. More green. Desaturate that. Okay. I want it to look like we got some trees kind of popping up in here. I don't have to be exact. Your brain is going to decide what this is. You know what I mean? It's going to know, hey, there's foliage here. Again, I'm just kind of a bunch of different values, varying some of my hues. I got some light showing in the actual reference over there, leaving that in place. And I don't even know what's going on here. There should be like more trees or something over here. This is, again, where I said I didn't push my water up far enough. I think my water should have been like up here. But it's fine. Just kind of go with the flow. Right? So I'm going to throw in some more trees. I'll let there be areas of light and dark. We want that kind of uneven. And here I'm quite green. I need to, not quite where I want to be yet. I'm going to take that burnt sienna. That one's going to be way too much. And see, now that's just giving me another green that I can pull into this. There's going to be some darker values in here. Remember I said this looks like it's kind of flat, so we're going to put in some darker value and try to keep that flat and then lift what's behind it. We have some darker values up here. And this kind of goes back and pulls into where this gets darker. There we go. when you're painting it, I mean, you're just going to be thinking, this is a hot mess. But when you back up, like, so when I'm looking right now at the painting, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm making a mess. But then I stop and I look up at my monitor and I'm seeing it as, a different perspective of it. And it's like, oh, okay, no, it's not necessarily a hot mess. It does look like just a bunch of uneven land and a lot of different, growth of plants and trees. And don't worry, paint, just paint. Just let it happen. Just play with it. It's a piece of paper. If you don't like it, it's not the end of the world. It was just a piece of paper. Do it again. But have fun. Like, oh my gosh, can you guys, I hope you cannot hear the neighbor's dog just going, losing his mind over there again. One day when I have my can build my fantasy studio, it will be on the opposite side of my house. Oh, thanks, Rob. Well, there he goes. Thank you to Rob, who's just gifted 10 memberships. Now, if you received a membership from Rob just now, I will announce names here in a moment. Don't forget, if you connect your Discord to YouTube, you'll be able to join us over on Discord, and you're definitely going to get a lot of behind the scenes, and that is where I post. I go to Discord first. If you want to communicate with me, Discord is definitely the place to get me. All right, we are getting there. I think I like it. I think I'm actually going to leave it alone for this part. Let's get some foreground stuff and get this one wrapped up. Okay, so Donald Soul says, might be a stupid question. It's definitely not a stupid question. If you don't know the answer, then asking is the only way you're going to find out. But can you do watercolor on canvas, wood, etc.? Or is it particular on certain papers? So there is watercolor ground that you can get that you can paint on different surfaces. Like, I've done watercolor on wood before, but I had to treat the wood with the watercolor ground first. Otherwise, usually you're painting watercolor on paper. So I hope that answered the question. It was a good question. So Snow S was gifted a membership. Sheila Hubbard, Maximum. Excuse me. Is it Mame? Mame, M-A-Y-M-E. Daniel, welcome. Namaseo, is that right? I apologize in advance if I mess up any of your names. This is not my intention. Deborah, Nafisa, Brogdon, Laura Isabel Art, Susie Q. So you all now will have you'll all have your little badge next to your name. You will be able to use the custom emotes that are just for members that you can use in the chat. And of course, you now have access to Discord. And there is a lot of channels on our Discord server that are open to everyone. Can you guys believe we got next week already? Next Friday is our next Zoom for creator members and above. So if you're a creator member, you will be getting the link to join me here in the studio via Zoom. It is a great time to hang out I'm just going to start laying in some of the darker color here in the foreground. And basically right now, I'm just going to keep my edge uneven because, you know, there's plants growing up here, and I'm going to have to bring this in darker, but just working on this edge. It's a great time to hang out with other artists. You choose how much interaction you have as far as if you want to turn on the camera on your phone and share what you're working on, or if you want to be on camera, you know, in like hanging out. It's like having you right here in the studio with me without physically having you right here in the studio with me. If you have questions on something you're working on, it's a great time to ask. You can get help. It's a lot of fun. And I hope that maybe some of you will join us as creator members. Studio members get to do that like every single month. Every month, studio members, we get together and hang out. But the creator members do that every quarter, and March happens to be the first one of the year. And I do it that way because that makes it so that, and you see, I'm just breaking up. So I'm just putting down my darkest value, and I'm just kind of pulling it up so that it looks like foliage growing in our foreground. But we hang out, and I do March as the first one because what happens is by doing it in March, that makes it be that it's April, May, June, September, and then December, because December is Christmas time and it's just fun for everybody to be able to hang out. So I always want creator and studio members to all be able to be there. Last year, we had we called it our Christmas party. And so we kind of got together. We had a special guest that joined us last year for that. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love hanging out with everybody. Rob says, I am becoming a huge fan of that Meeden block. Thank you. Right? He's talking about this paper. It's wonderful. All right, I'm going to get this a little wet because I'm going to want to do some techniques like I did up here just to make it go faster. So just wetting my brush. And again, I'm still using this large round brush. I somehow picked it back up as we were going along. And all right, and I'm also wetting where I had that much lighter color. I love how you can just glaze these colors over each other. All right, grabbing some more. I need to mix up some other values. And remember I said I'm going to take here's some burnt umber, right? And we're going to just kind of, now that this is like wet, I can just like drop stuff in places and it's going to move a little on its own. I'm going to grab a little bit of the yellow ochre, kind of brighten that up a little bit. I'm sticking with the ochre and the umber because I still want my colors to be muted. This entire painting has, the colors are like a very muted feel to them, and I don't want to lose that. I don't want to, make it too bright. All right, now that we have some of those kind of in there, let me take maybe a little bit of this raw umber. And remember, I said raw umber was the only color that I thought took a little extra to activate. However, if you remember in the beginning, I put some drops of water in all of the colors that I thought I might use today. So I'm just dropping in a few spots for like some shadows. I'm actually going to bring some of this umber over here too. some of these areas. Still a little damp. It's going to diffuse. This is definitely wet and wet. And now let's get back to, remember that blue, darker blue green color that I've been mixing with there. I'll put a little bit of that in. It's going to add some shadow in places. And now I need to, I'm just taking my brush, and you don't have to use the big brush. I can grab my small brush here, and just one of the small ones. If you're more comfortable with that, once you put that color in, you can take that small brush, and I'm just pulling up some of that color that I just dropped in there, so that it looks like, breaks that plane, looks like grass is growing. I can also just come in with that tiny brush, if that's what you're more comfortable with, to get those like skinny lines, then go for it. I just did that in my clean water. So my clean water was perfectly clean until I just stuck that in there. My palette is drying already so quickly. Everything dries so quickly. All right, just going to drop in more of this darker green. So you're going to see me kind of drop it, and I'm letting the point, so I'm holding it about a 45-degree angle, and I'm like pushing the point up so it breaks the plane of like where the water is, and just going to drop some in. You'll see it's going to mix and mingle with the umbers and that I've put on that paper and that ochre. Right. Come through, and now again, so where I'm here, there's a section here that it's not as like grassy, so just breaking that plane is enough. And this actually jetted out a lot more than the way I painted it, so I can add that, right? I can push that out more. If you are still hanging out, watching, thank you for joining me today. You guys are the best. It has been a heck of a couple weeks being sick, and it feels so good to be hanging out with everybody, streaming. Now this area where it pushes out, that also has some growth. So again, I'm just with the tip of my brush, I'm kind of like flicking it forward, right? Flicking, like, so I'm flicking forward and lifting away, and that's giving me that like grassy effect. There we go. Look at that. Now look at how much that is starting to look like the water that's just sparkling, right? The sun's coming up, it's burning off that fog. We're starting to get some sparkle on the water. It is starting to come through. And again, as I go, don't worry about being exact. We're going for photo similar, not photorealistic. Can't say that enough, because I want you to take that pressure off of yourselves. Thanks for joining us, Starving Artist Collective. But I am hoping that next week I am fully back to my normal self. All right, and here we have, this is where we have some of those lights and darks. So I'm going to want to preserve some of that. All right. Bringing that down. You see, I've used up a lot of what's on my palette, and I've mixed a lot of it together. I tend to do that. It comes out over here a bit. Dropping that in. That's a lot of water. It's very wet. And we've got like that, right? Because this actually ends up being connected at some point, because this river kind of comes around and then goes this way. So we know at some point this is just like a cove that's over here. Again, I don't want to lose that brightness that I have there. And all you gotta do is dab and lift if you get a little bit too much. And I need some darker values in here. So once again, I'm going back after that deep green, which is a much cooler green. I'm gonna take I know that was too much. Speck of that black there, just desaturating it with black. Again, and I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. I took the black, but if I took my deep green and I don't want to use black, or maybe I don't have black, maybe you're doing this painting with whatever supplies you have, I can come into like, this is crimson red, or I could come into like my scarlet red, which is PR21. Crimson red is PR21 and PR13, but I could come into this red. And now with that red in this green, you see how I can get almost that same value, almost the same, just by adding its complement red instead of desaturating it with black. I'm just doing it with the black because I get very consistent result every time. I can mix it faster, and so that's why I chose to grab the black. But just so that you know, you don't have to. And if you don't have black, it doesn't matter. You can still desaturate with just using its complement. So in this case, a red, because we're making a green. Okay, I'm just trying to put in some of the shadows that are in this corner. And it looks so much dark. Like I look at what it is here, it doesn't look that dark. And then I put it on the paper and I'm like, oh, it just looks so dark. But I'm not worried about it. Here, I'm just letting the tip of my brush kind of bounce around and get different shadows. Because there's a lot of brush here. And there's a lot of different highlights and shadows. We want that texture, so just letting it kind of dance around on the paper. All right, and I'm coming right into that one that I mixed with the red. It's fine. Again, like I said, the color's so very similar. Okay. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. This was a lot of fun to paint. This was definitely one of the biggest challenges I have taken on for a live stream. And to be able to do this over the course of just 2 streams, yeah, that's something. I also, you know, I took on the challenge because I wanted you to see, like a lot of times, watercolor is quick. Like you can work pretty quick in watercolor, but that doesn't mean that also watercolor can't take quite a bit of time. And I wanted you to kind of see this in real time. And honestly, I had thought about painting this first and giving it a go to see, you know, how am I going to be able to do it? How should I approach it? What's going to work? What's not going to work? Because sometimes you have to do that. Like sometimes you have to paint it more than once because you have to see how it's going to come together. And you'll do something, you'll go, like I said, this river should have been pushed back about here more. But I didn't do that when I started painting it, and it landed where it landed. And that's okay. But as you go through and you do this stuff, you might find that you'll learn a lot from what you're painting. And you're going to find that there might be things you do differently. So paint it again. Okay, Rob. Well, thanks for coming in. And we're just about done. So you can catch all of it on replay. And I think that before I do wrap it up, though, this is too light. This little section back here, it needs to darken up. And so all I really need to do is just kind of, again, I'm going to come in, clean water, and I'm just going to wet this area. When I say clean water and wet the area, I'm not soaking this area. And there are some paints where if you do that, where you bring that water in like that, it's going to cause, and I'm just dabbing the top edge, it's going to cause that paint to activate and push a bloom and push that paint away. And you're not going to get away with doing what I just did. But that's another reason that I just think that these Meeden paints and this Meeden paper is a wonderful, I'm just kind of glazing again. I'm glazing over this area with the same shadow color I was just using up here. Just to darken this up a little bit more. These paints are they're going to be very beginner friendly. Notice I'm still preserving some areas because it's foggy. And the further back we are, the more fog there is. So I want to go ahead and let there be some areas that are lighter and darker. But this does not have even distinct like trees like this. We don't see that back there. We just see areas of light and areas that are more in shadow. And yeah, I'm liking that better. It was just a little too light. Now again, this will still dry lighter. There is a color shift. So it's still going to lighten up as it does dry, but I like that much better. And this one is really bright. Let's just darken this. It's a lighter area tree, but it's not that light. There we go. Okay. Now, can I just bring your attention to the water? You see, and I'll use this now. Like next time I come up here to paint, I'll go keep using this dirty water to clean my brush because, and I do it for a while. I mean, I actually had to clean up from being sick. I probably had a good 3/4 of an inch of evaporation that happened out of my rinse well. But I kept using it. I mean, I cleaned it before we started today. I got the clean water. Let me just take that. Remember, I put that with under there. Okay. Look at that. I'm loving the sparkle we have to the water. And that is just by preserving the white of the paper. But yeah, I'll keep using this. I'll use it again next time I paint because look how that dirty, nasty water and how clean the clean side stayed. And I really think that happens because that's the benefit of the paint puck. I definitely believe that. So huge thank you to everybody who is still here and watching. I hope that you really have enjoyed this one. It's not completely dry, but it's not exact, right? It's not exact to our reference photo, but I'm loving this atmosphere, right? This foggy distance, and then we can just kind of feel, right? Like the light is starting to come through. I think I wish this needs to be maybe a little lighter. And let's see if we can do a little lifting right there because this is that light kind of pouring over the mountains. And I think like, and this is where you go, oh my gosh, am I going to ruin it? Well, I don't know. We're just going to see what we get here if we try to lift. So all I did was you saw that was just pulling clean water over this area. And then we just lift with our tissue to pull that out. We can do that in a few spaces if we want to. And some paints will lift better than the other, but some paints will lift better than others. But that is something that you definitely, like when I very first painted those mountains in, I should have pulled that color back out, and that would have really shown more like the light was coming through. But our sun's coming up, it's burning off that fog, and it's starting to sparkle across our river and lighten up some of our foreground over here. I love it. Sounds like you guys like it too. So you can always lift. So great question, Dolphin Soul. Can you, asking if you can always lift. So some colors are going to be more staining than others. So some watercolors are going to lift easier than others. These Meeden colors, once they're down and they're dry, if it's still wet, I can take a damp brush and I can lift out, and I can do that pretty well. But as you saw here, like once these are dry, they don't lift as well. So they're not fast movers, and they're not great lifters after they've dried. There are other watercolor paints that lift so much more, easy than others. But that said, yeah, you can come back through and lift, and a lot of colors will lift to an extent. Phthalos are going to be more staining. So remember, I use Prussian blue, and their Prussian blue was PB15 and PV23. PV15 is phthalo blue. Phthalo blue is going to stain, and I know that. So I'm never going to be able to fully lift that out. But, yeah, watercolor's very, it's hard, but it's forgiving, but it's definitely a challenge, but it's definitely a challenge that I think is worth accepting for sure. So I could still darken up some areas here. I think could still be a little bit darker, but all in all, I'm pleased with this one, and I'm gonna have to sign it. I just don't even know where. Maybe in here. But I'm gonna let it all dry first before I do that, because I'll come back and sign it with like a micron pen or something afterwards. And yeah, I think I'll probably just sign it in black. The signatures just kind of fade into that background. But this also, let me just show you. Remember I showed you how buckled that was? This was so lifted off, like greatly lifted off when we first came in and re-wet our background. And remember, this was like all wavy. Look how flat that's already dried. Already it is returning to its, flattened state. And as long as I leave this on the block for it to completely dry, so I won't take it off tonight. If I come up to the studio tomorrow morning before live chat, because patrons, we have live chat tomorrow morning at 10:30. That is on Discord. This will be, I'll take it off then, and I'll post a picture for everybody on Discord so that you can see it. So definitely, if you became a member today, welcome. So glad that you could join us, and definitely consider connecting to Discord, because we do a lot over there. And thank you all for hanging out with me for so long. It was a long one, but I am so glad. I'm exhausted and tired and ready to rest for sure. But I'm so glad I got to hang out with you guys today. Very big thank you to patrons and members. If you enjoyed this, I hope you'll consider hitting that like button and possibly subscribing to join us in future live streams and just get notified when I put videos out. So yeah, I enjoyed this. I hope you did too. And look at that. Let me show you from like this, like, look at it from there. Like at that distance, And that's what this reference photo was, right? This reference photo was a photo that was taken at a distance where nothing was actually like there was no great details on much of anything. And I love the way that that one came out. I hope you guys did too, and I hope you'll give it a try. The reference photo is on my Patreon. There's a link in the description. There's a link to all the supplies in the description. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the first let me just get rid of that. I hope you guys have enjoyed this first curated collection. I am already working on the next one. I can't wait to bring that to you. And this one for me has been a hit. I definitely recommend it. Thank you to Meeden. Thank you to all of you who have ordered, because quite a few of you have actually ordered this, and I can't wait to see what you start creating with it, because I think you're going to have a lot of fun. The paper alone is wonderful. And yeah, so thanks for joining me. Keep creating. I will pop another video up right about there that you guys might like to watch next if you're watching this on the replay. Thank you to Joseph and Tara, my moderators, and check out their channels. Their links are in the description below. And until next time, keep creating, and I will see you guys in a video real soon.